Hey everybody, I'm Maria Campbell, founder of Cooks Who Care, and we want to share what food stories really mean to people and how it embodies how we think. We often credit our family histories, we talk about it, we congregate around food, but it's very personal to every single person. And there is no better person I would want to talk to about this than the guest that we had just a ways back with Megan Hoft in Hungry Education. And no better storyteller than Stephen to really talk about from his theater background how we actually transpire these stories and put them to words to explain them to people or write them and put it into some sort of form. So there are so many ways that we could communicate, and our memories become a part of that experience. So we want you to remember what we were thinking about and what we hosted together and be a part of what our meetup series can be. Meet new people, meet new perspectives, meet new styles of formats of what meetup groups are all about, and do it with Cooks Who Care.
My name is Megan Hoft. I'm a founder of an organization called Hungry Education. I've been a food educator for over 15 years, but like Stephen, I have a background in the performing arts.
So I'm Steve Gravel, and I'm a recovering theater person in Philadelphia. I worked for a long time in the arts, and now I'm a teaching artist. So I work primarily for Philadelphia Young Playwrights. I go into schools, and I work with students from 3rd grade to 12th, teaching them how to tell their stories through theater, through plays. But I'm very interested also in food. I, like everyone, between 2010 and 2013, ran a food blog. So I started thinking about food storytelling that way as well. But I'm very excited about food. I cook all the time. And so we're excited to talk about food history and also to learn your stories, which is really why we're here.
Yeah, so one of the things that we're going to really be talking about is the fact that Americans tend to think about food in a very black and white sort of way, as I'm sure you probably experience in your work. The majority of what we look at in food in this country tends to be nutrition-based or transactional. And quite honestly, food and the parallels between food and life are vast and are pretty complex. We at Hungry work with children as young as 2. And we use play-based learning to be able to connect with children at that point. And rather than focusing on healthy food or teaching them how to cook, we work with them around things like storytelling, dramatic play, movement, and music as a way for them to be able to set up a strong foundational relationship with food. So we know variations on myplate.gov, the food pyramid. How long do you think we've had that information available to us? Just out of curiosity.
1970s?
60s, 1970s? You say 1960s? 60s? We've actually had it since 1917. So we've had variations on something like the food pyramid. It was called the food wheel, and it's gone through different versions of infographics to be able to understand that. So we know what to eat as Americans. The question of why we eat is a little bit less discussed in the public sphere. But as we're going to find out as we go through this, we're going to see that there's a lot of connections between culture, there's a lot of connections between history, and there's a lot of sort of intangible qualities about food and the reasons why we eat. So taste and smell are the biggest drivers behind why we eat. And sometimes if you've ever worked with senior populations, you'll see that their interest in food starts to decline. Mostly because their smell has started to decline. So you'll see them eating a lot of things that are very sweet or salty because they simply just can't taste the food the way that they used to. There's some really fascinating research. There's an old study out of Sweden that looks at comfort food between a group of Swedish women and a group of Thai women. And the Thai women ate the Swedish food, the Swedish women ate the Thai food, and what they found was that they absorbed more nutrients with the food that they were familiar with, regardless of how healthy it was.
Yeah, I have 2 older sisters. One of them has 2 children, and she only feeds them foods that can be cooked in about 10 minutes. That's sort of her limit for how much time she's willing to spend in the kitchen cooking. And you'd be shocked at the number of things that can be cooked in 10 minutes, but a lot of it involves the microwave, and not a lot of it involves the oven or the stove. So that's the way that my sister feeds her kids, but she insists that they have a protein, a grain, and a vegetable. That is the way a meal is made. A lot of times she lets them choose, which grain do you want tonight, which protein do you want tonight, which vegetable do you want tonight? And so in a way, I'm proud of her because she's empowering her kids to make decisions about food, but she's also thinking of it as just this tri-plate and only foods that are essentially prepared so that they can be cooked really quickly. Whereas I spend hours in the kitchen every week because it's the place where I feel most comfortable. Doing work in the kitchen is actually relaxing for me, not stressful. So yeah, it's very different. We were brought up by the same parents and have totally different ways of eating.
Food is often an expression of how our family values things in this world. And so one of the things that we're looking at in the larger research that we're doing around hungry is, because nutrition is sort of this like slippery slope of both hard and soft science, how much do we perceive to be nutrition as in fact actually an expression of middle class values? Because how someone from another class or ethnic group may cook could be totally different in the way that we cook. And so I think in a lot of times when we tend to look at, I don't know if you guys do this, probably not, I spend a lot of time living in the comments section because I feel like that's where the gold is. Good or bad. But the three things that I find that people fight most vehemently about are religion, politics, and food.
We don't think a lot in our lives. We're not asked to address the stories that determine the things we eat. We think about food as transactional, as what can I afford, who do I like to support, do I like to go to the farmer's market, take the time out of my day, do I like to source my ingredients ethically, do I just go to the Acme and buy the giant pack of chicken, what am I doing with my life? We also think about food as what do I have access to, where do I live, what neighborhood do I live in, how far am I willing to travel to get my food, who am I willing to talk to in order to get the best food possible, or am I satisfied to just get the fruit roll-up that I could get at the corner store and drink Mountain Dew or whatever it is we do. So thinking about the way our food lives have been introduces us to how our food lives are now, but as always, we can make choices about how our food stories continue to impact us in the future. So are we willing to eat rabbit? Are we willing to eat crickets? Are we willing to eat plant-based portobello mushrooms that our smells trick us into thinking that we're eating a burger? How far are we willing to go to make positive or negative changes to our food lives and to the food culture of our city and to the food culture of our world? Is that too big, the world?
No.
Should we maybe just focus on, I don't know, the world. Great, the world.